Hey guys, good morning. So a few days ago, or not a few days ago, like about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a video on a question that changed my life. The simple but yet not skimming the surface but plumbing the deeps question: Who am I? This today, not this week, today, I am going to be sharing with you all the philosophy that has changed my life. And the philosophy is that nobody really knows what's going on. There's not one person in this whole universe that has all the answers, that knows what's really right and what's really wrong. Um, Growing up in the West, we tend to have that we must know everything and anything, and that if there is the slightest space of the unknown, then it must be known to us. We must have this knowledge. And to me, a Christian who says, or anybody for that matter, Christian or non Christian, anybody who says that they know the ins and the outs of life, to know everything and anything about God, about, politics, about, how to see the world for what it really is, to me is a form of sacrilegion. Because I would argue that to know anything and everything there's to know about life is another way of saying I don't need God. Because if I know everything and anything, then I would be God. And that simply is not the case. And I'm actually reminded of Dana Carvey, the comedian. In his Netflix special, one of the things he references is his faith, how he grew up Lutheran, and how he does believe, but it's okay to have doubts, you know. And I believe that is the case. That it's okay. You shouldn't feel ashamed to have doubts. You know, um, doubts are very um, motivating for you to want to try to find out what that truth is. You may be successful and find some knowledge and wisdom. Some you might not, and there's no shame in that. For you all, if I can find it, um, a passage of scripture that this has been helping me. I'm gonna have to Google it. It's just just a verse that has been helping me. Um, just understand that um, that there is freedom, and so yeah, this verse that I'm quoting for you is um, Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. Um, so basically, what I get from that verse is that when you think of freedom, you think of how you have liberty to do whatever one wants to, whatever one says, all that stuff. I feel like a lot of times, especially Christians, we tend to take that verse and use the antonym version. In other words, it is for religion that Christ set us free. It is for rules and regulations. It is for harsher obedience or being compelled. It is for fear that Christ set us free. And these were the things that a lot of religiosity and Christianity teach. And what's interesting is that if someone, I mean, it doesn't really happen at this point for me, but if I were to have someone come up to me claiming to be Christian and saying, "Brother, I have something in my heart for you. It's not easy for me to share this." Immediately I would go, "Oh, no, thanks. Why? This isn't easy for me to share this." Well, you're quoting Old Testament. What does the New Testament say? The New Testament says that my yoke isn't heavy, it's light. And the opposite of what you're saying. So basically, if a Christian were to say something like that, he'd basically be quoting the Antichrist, basically. Um, um, and just to kind of show you um, where I'm at, I want to show you guys a new tattoo that I got yesterday. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing tattoo. Basically to symbolize, the typical meaning that is that, us Christians, we're the sheep, and there are so-called Christians who are wolf in sheep's clothing, and I can understand that sentiment. Um, but at the same time, I always, my walk has been evolving since childhood, and from the time I was a child until probably when I was out of high school and 2 years ago, I had the realization that I was copycatting my belief. I believed everything about God and all other stuff surrounding it or even not surrounding it because my parents had to, you know? I mean, you even look at the concept of giving, to God tithing. Um, Whenever I would go to West Side, whether it was by myself or with family, I would go, and whenever they would mention giving, they would say, if you don't feel led to give, if the Spirit isn't prompting you to give, that's okay. But when I was growing up, and that concept came up, I would get the exact opposite. I would feel shame. I would feel compelled. I would basically be told it doesn't matter if you feel led by the Spirit or not to give. The Bible says give, so therefore you must give. And not only that, but another example, and this is actually one of the things that has kind of led me to um, where I am today, is people think that if you have devotionals, spending one-on-one time with God or with people, and you're reading and you're praying, and people are getting something from God, and you're not getting something from God. The deal there is that you feel shame because you feel like God's supposed to answer you right off the bat. Again, whenever I go to Westside, I hear the exact opposite. They tell me that it's okay if you don't feel anything, if you don't get anything from God right off the bat, you know. Um, and not only that, but this thing on pastors, like, Southwest Bible Church where I grew up, that church for the most part is all right. I mean, I do have, you know friends that go there, and every now and then I'll stop by and visit and stuff like that. But the church I've discovered is that it's very, very judgmental. Um, and I don't mean that in a hateful way. I mean that in a loving way. Just to give you an example, this was when me and my when me and my um, sister and mom, when we made the switch to go. Um, Something that has always bothered me. Well, not bothered me, but it definitely intrigued me to want to understand religion more, to want to understand the church more. I had this weird feeling of why is it that when my dad enters the church of Southwest, which he doesn't do very often, I mean, I don't think he has done it in a while, but when my dad finds himself there, he gets open, he gets it there, he gets welcomed with open arms. But when my mom finds herself there, which hasn't been a while as well, but whenever she has found herself there years ago, she would get basically the judgment eye, the you know the the how dare you eye, you know, and these are Christians doing this, and so it really was like, okay, this is very weird. But then to make things a little bit more interesting, um, I have two members of my family who disagree on a certain pastor. Um, my grandpa, who I believe when next month hits, somewhere in the middle of next month, it'll be like three, yeah, I think 3 years since he passed. My grandpa and my mom. Um, my grandpa was a huge Joel Osteen um, guy. Loved him to the point where he got books of his, and he claimed to be Christian, and that was one of the things that bonded me with him, that got me close to him. Even though we only saw each other once or twice a year, since he lived in Bend, Oregon, which is like 3 hours from where I am. Um, but then my mom was the exact opposite. You know, I don't know what prompted it, but I just remember asking my mom to basically give her like stamp of approval on what pastors do I listen to, what pastors do I not listen to. So I went down the list. I even mentioned a few that have doctorates and are labeled doctors as pastors. And each one I went down the list, she was like, yes, 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 yes. I then get to Joel Osteen, and she just was like, okay, yeah, that is the one person that you should stay away from. And I always wondered why. I was like, okay, here I have two people. Well, one because the other isn't in my life anymore because he's passed, but two people who professed to be Christian and are for the message of Jesus and love, yet they differentiate on a pastor. And then it got to the point where I felt like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I need to look at some messages of this guy. I need to see what the fuss is all about with this guy. So I watched a few messages, especially having to do with certain things I'm struggling with right now, like hope and silence and um, feeling valued and stuff like that. But I wanted to take a step further. I actually wanted to compare him with um, with all the others. Not only that, but whenever he mentioned a verse, um, I would pick up the Bible and read it. For one, whenever he mentioned a verse and I picked it up to see if he got it right, I couldn't find any misquotations of the Bible. You know, um, as far as just saying it from memory goes. You know, um, I mean, that was one of the things that I found similar with him and Ben Corson. Ben Corson is one of my favorites, and for the most part, he will quote verses as well. Like he has somewhat of an eidetic memory when it comes to certain verses. And will he read, some, yeah, but he'll also quote it. So it's like, okay, well, that's similar. But then I also watch videos of Jensen Franklin, of Mark Driscoll, of Dr. Charles Stanley. I'm gonna start evolving it into including Dr. David Jeremiah and Francis Chan and stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that there came a day where I was listening to Joel Osteen and all these different men. And then all of a sudden it hit me that I am aware and I understand of why there are certain pastors that get a little bit of a bad rap and that they get into some controversy, not intending to. But the one thing that I believe Christians fail at is that we fail to recognize the positive. We fail to look at what is true, what is accurate. I think we fail too much. I think we look too much at the falseness. We look too much on the negative. We look at the errors. And while we should be aware of the errors, we shouldn't let those errors let us have the right to dub someone a false prophet or a false teacher. Um, you know, like I could listen to a Joel Osteen message and pick apart the truths that I hear from it and filter out the negatives. I can do the same thing with a guy like Jensen Rick. Like, hell, I could even do it with one of the doctors. Um, you know, and not only that, but you also even look at the Christian religions that are even labeled cults, like Mormonism and Scientology. Um, Growing up, that was one of the areas in which I copycatted. I believed that they were cults, and even now to this day, I understand why that there are Christians who subscribe to that belief. But I again, when I was younger, I believed it because I felt like I had to, because I didn't know what is it about these guys that Christians don't like. And so that's why I'm a little hesitant to call them that, because I myself, in the journey that I'm at right now, I have to do my research. Um, you know, and and here's the thing: is that at the end of the day, if I do end up finding out that they are cults or not, either way, the day that it happens, I will still think that they will be less cult-like than a church that praises destruction and that promotes that as the will of God, like Westmore Baptist Church. Like, you like you can, do or say whatever you want about me or do to me, but to me, if I had to play the game, would you rather? I would rather listen to a health and wealth prosperity gospel than listen to a message where it's praising destruction and it's praising bombings, it's praising these shootings, saying that that's quote unquote God's will. I mean, I worked for a boss who I somehow got to that topic with him, and he is one of those quote unquote Christians who believes that destruction is the will of God. And I'm like, it's stuff like that that's just made me really question my faith. That's why I'm very passionate about this philosophy. That there's not one person who knows everything. We all don't know everything. We only have a fraction, a percentage of what we know to be right and wrong. And in order to have a little bit more percentage on that, we need everybody. We even need the people who delve into quote unquote controversial waters, you know. Like, we need everybody. We can't just be a part of a select frozen chosen and only be friends with people not only who believe in God and as we do, but of the same sect. We need Christians, we need Catholics, we need Lutherans, we need Baptists, um, we need Protestants. Dare I say, we need Mormons. Like, we need the whole picture. We need to understand everything. I mean, that's why I'm a bookworm, and fascinated by more than just the Christian perspective on things. I am fascinated by all perspectives, you know. Um, and so, if you're watching this right now and you feel like you're shamed because you don't know everything like your parent or parents or anybody in your life claims to know, and you feel shame because you don't have that, be released of that shame. You know what you know right now, and that's all right. That's fine. Like, have no shame in that. Like, it is for freedom we were set free. So if you feel compelled, like me, to give or to hear from God right off the bat, or to dress up a certain way or whatever, like if you feel that, like, rebel against the system. Say, I love you, I appreciate what you're doing, but I'm just not getting the love of God like I want to. Like, I need to find I need to be I need to find the beat of my own drum when it comes to following Jesus. I need to find out my place of difference, why I exist. And if that means jumping into controversial waters and looking like a rebel, then so be it, you know? Um, I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of a guy like Ben Corson, how he's a Christian, but he's not your typical Christian who like will wear a suit and tie. I mean, I'm sure every now and then, if he feels the tie vibe, then he'll get it. Then he'll wear one. But he's like more of like the rebellious hipster kind of pastor. And I love that. I love that. You know, um, just amazing. You know what this is doing, and it's interesting because it's like, um, in this search for what is and what isn't, I've also discovered um, something to be true, and that is that some of the knowledge that you look for, that God wants you to have, that He doesn't bless you with, by the way, but that comes to fruition. And some of what I've been learning is some of that knowledge. It will, it has troubled me at first because it would feel like it's going against what I've been taught growing up. Then analyzing where I've been as a kid, evolving to now when I'm almost 24, and the books that I'm reading, and getting back to reading the Bible, and then listening to all these different messages. I transition myself from being troubled to marveling, knowing that, okay, this is that, this could mean this, and it's just really an awesome time for me. I mean, I even remember, I believe it was the second day of my orientation retreat for the residency program that I was in, and uh, it was after um, doing um, leadership scheduling. I felt I had a realization for myself, that I was being a prisoner of my own mind, on and off, and I felt led to talk to one of the guys who was like overseeing the whole thing. And so I talked to him, and basically what he said that kind of cleared it all up for me was that, for the most part, you do get it. You do understand, you know, like what is happening in life, and what's, the true goal and everything. Like you get it, but you just have hiccups. You're just having these little hiccups, these little bumps in the road, if you will, that you're going through, that you're trying to overcome. And that he said that it's not uncommon for any person in their 20s to go through that. And that just gave me hope, and realizing that one day, you know, everything will be made right. And until then, I just have to have that hope of knowing that it's not the end. So yeah, that's basically um, the philosophy, a little bit in depth of the philosophy that is changing my life, and hope that it's changing yours. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to comment down below. Um, Also, like, subscribe, and comment and share. And as always, thanks for watching.